Call the monthly board meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Motion, have a second.
I second it.
Quinn, second. All in favor, show of hands. Motion carries. And I have a motion to approve last month's minutes.
Make that motion.
Pondrum. Second.
I second it.
Quinn, all in favor, show of hands. Board, Dr. Henry, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, tonight is the night that we will be bringing new people to the board and swearing in incumbents and all this fun stuff. So before we get to that, we wanted to recognize our current board officers. Our officers are willing to take on additional responsibilities and provide guidance and direction for our Board of Education. They accept these responsibilities because they care deeply for the students we serve and desire to provide the necessary leadership to continue our growth as a model for excellence in education across the state of Missouri. So first, I will recognize our current president, Mr. Paul Schultz. Mr. Schultz has served 3 terms as president for the Waynesville Board of Education, and he has been an excellent leader. During Paul's tenure, our district has reached new heights in performance, remodeled our middle school, obtained the first DSIP grant in state history to renovate the Parker Fine Arts building, and persevered through one of the worst pandemics in the history of our world. So, as I always say, if you cut Paul, he bleeds black and orange. So, thank you, Mr. Schultz, for your service.
Paul without him. Be Paul without the sunglasses.
Who is that person?
I got him.
Oh, does it have any others too?
Yeah, that's why I'm confused.
Huh, okay. We'll check. There's 2 Paul Schultz. What's that? Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, we're getting all of our gifts straightened out now. Vice President Dr. Leroy Fulmer. Dr. Fulmer has been with our district for just a few years as a student, teacher, coach, administrator, school board member. I don't believe he ever drove a bus. Maybe. Okay. In addition, Dr. Fulmer was recently selected to serve on the Board of Directors for the Missouri School Boards Association. Dr. Fulmer's dedication to the students of our district spans decades, and we appreciate all of your leadership. So thank you, Dr. Fulmer. All right. Next up, we have a person very new to the district, Mr. Deering. Mr. Deering has served as Secretary of the Board of Education for 2 years. In addition, Mr. Deering retired as an educator and coach in our school district, and he's in his 2nd term as a board member for our school district. Thank you for your contributions, Mr. Deering. And finally, I think when we did board recognition, I might have slipped up and said that Mr. Quinn was an Auburn fan.
Oh, you didn't
So I didn't say that. So To avoid any confusion, he wore the scarlet letter A tonight. So the treasurer of our current school board, Mr. Charles Quinn. Mr. Quinn has served 3 terms as treasurer on our Board of Education, as well as being our district's representative to our school district investment program. As a military veteran and leader in our community, Mr. Quinn is taking 2 gifts, has represented the students of our district extremely well, and he's advocated for continued growth in our social and emotional wellness and diversity initiatives. So thank you to my favorite Alabama fan,
Roll Tide.
Mr. Charles Quinn. Now, though I realize she's not in attendance tonight, I do want to recognize Mrs. Jan Dye for her willingness to complete a term that was vacated through an early departure. Over the past several months, and one could argue several decades, Mrs. Dye has provided sound input and guidance as a board member in our school district, and she was demonstrating her love and support for our district the entire time she was here. So we sure appreciate everything Jan did stepping in. Being typical Jan, she didn't want much of the spotlight tonight, but I did want to recognize her, and we do have a gift for her as well as you do get 2 gifts, Mr. Schultz. It's your night because you're an outgoing as well as coming back in, so you get one of those too. So there you go. I'll bring it to you even. So yeah, very good. Okay, so thank you very much. With the closing of one board, we always look forward to the starting of a new. So that'll be happening here in just a few minutes. So thank you all, and we'll be able to move on.
Okay, we'll move into action items, the old board. Textbooks, Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, I was on the wrong meeting. Thank you. Last month we brought for discussion the HMH programs for grades 6 through 8. For grade 6, we would like to adopt into reading and then into literature for grades 7 and 8. Administration request approval for the proposed textbook adoption as presented.
Any comments or questions? Do I have a motion? Mr. Ponder makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mr. President.
Quinn, second. All in favor, show of hands. Motion carries. Professional Development Handbook, Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. The 2021-2022 Professional Development Handbook is presented for a second reading and approval. Handbooks were presented at the regular March meeting. No comments or questions were received. Administration requests approval as presented.
Any other comments or questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Harn makes a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Deering, second. All in favor, show of hands. Motion carries. Proposed policy revision, Mrs. Long, Mrs. Bills.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mrs. Long nor I have received any additional comments or questions and are recommending the approval of JGR1 student discipline and JFCA AP1 at this time, please.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Ponder makes a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Deering, second. All in favor, show of hands. Motion carries. Proposed student handbooks 2021-22, second reading, Ms. Long, Ms. Bills.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration is recommending approval of the below handbooks at this time.
I have a motion. Mr. Harn's motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Deering. All in favor, show of hands. 7-0 or 6-0. Okay. Proposed transportation handbook 2021-2022, Mrs. Bills.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration has not received any additional comments or concerns and is recommending the adoption of the 2021-2022 transportation handbook at this time, please.
Any comments or questions? Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Ponder, Mr. Deering. All in favor, show of hands. Motion carries. Election results, Dr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last action of the board, this current board, will be to take the recommendation to approve the certificate of election results. I'll make that recommendation now.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Form makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Quinn, second. All in favor, show of hands. 7-0, motion carries. We will adjourn, sign aye, die.
Fancy Latin stuff. And at this time, Mrs. Ace, we will have her administer the oath of office to yourself and Mrs. Rye.
Where are we going?
Right out there.
I'm coming.
I mean, we've done it, either place is good. That's fine. This is Megan, she loves doing this stuff. She loves to administer the oath.
Okay, so if you can just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school board member in and for the Waynesville R6 School District, County of Pulaski, State of Missouri, to the best of my ability, according to law. Okay, just get you guys to sign I've learned.
Congratulations.
Okay, at this time, very temporarily, don't worry, I assume temporary chairmanship of the board, so we can elect our officers. After the president has been elected, then he or she will take over and go ahead and do the elections for vice president, secretary, and treasurer. Just a couple reminders on nomination. Seconds are not required by Robert's rule in the election of officers. A member can rise to accept or decline the nomination if he or she should choose. And after the nomination, if we have more than one candidate, I will say the candidate's name. You'll have the opportunity to vote on the first candidate, then the second candidate, and then the third if needed. And we'll count votes at that time for president. So with this, there's no motion required to close nominations, and we'll wait for a reasonable time. If no other nominations are given, then move on to the next person. So at this point, I will go ahead and open up the floor to have nominations for president of the board.
Dr. Henry, I would like to nominate Mr. Paul Schultz as the president.
Okay, Mr. Schultz, do you accept?
Yes.
He said yes. Any other nominations? Given that there are no other nominations, we would move that you accept this by acclamation, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Schultz. So do we have a vote of acclamation at this time for Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
All right.
You're doing a good job, you sure?
No, I'm done. My temporary chairmanship's over. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back.
All right, at this time, we'll take nominations for vice president.
Mr. President, I go ahead and announce, I nominate Dr. Fulmer, please, for Vice President.
You wait like 10 seconds there.
Yeah.
No other nominations?
Does he accept?
Do you accept?
Yes.
He said yes. Go to the microphone, Leroy. All right. By acclamation, you're vice president. Do I have any nominations to elect secretary?
I'd like to nominate Dan Deering.
Do you accept? Nobody else? Congratulations, you're secretary. And do I have a nomination for treasurer?
Mr. President, I would
like to nominate Charles Quinn. This would be the third time, and I think he might get it right by this time.
Not by his face coverings.
Oh, well, that's probably true, but nonetheless.
Do you accept?
Yes, sir. I'll get it right this time.
There you go. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Dr. Fulmer makes a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, show of hands. 7-0. Citizen statements.
Mr. President, we had no one request citizens' participation as per policy BDDH,
Written communications.
and we had no written communications either.
Military update.
Good evening. I'm Megan O'Donohue from Family and MWR, representing Fort Leonard Wood. And I just wanted to remind you of a couple of our ongoing Month of the Military Child events on Fort Leonard Wood, to include our scavenger hunt and our Month of the Military Child Carnival drive-through event on the 30th of April. Also, on the 21st, this Wednesday, we have a PCSing with your student seminar. It is 3 p.m. on Teams. The link is on our MWR website. That's a really good seminar if you are PCSing, especially because you're nearing the end of a school year or going into in the middle of a school year. So please check that out. Everybody's welcome. And finally, our Garrison Commander, Colonel Towns, would like me to mention that per our op board, we are going to be resuming in-person graduations on 1 May through a phased approach, starting with our small graduations with our functional classes. On the 15th of May, we'll open that up to OSIT and AIT, and by 1 June, we will have our basic training graduations back in person. That may mean some gate access, some time, maybe some longer lines that we all are not used to anymore. So please have students, parents, our bus drivers plan accordingly, and as we resume our new normal. Pending any questions, that's all I have. Go Tigers, Army strong.
Thank you very much. And district announcements, Dr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President, and great news about graduations, Megan, thank you. Well, we have quite a few people here. We have a sea of black in T-shirts back there, all matching. So this is our Freedom Elementary who are here for their recognition tonight. Just want to say thank you to the Freedom staff for all that you're doing for our students. It's fantastic during such a difficult time, and we do appreciate all the work that you're doing. Looking forward to recognizing you here just a bit later in the agenda. I want to congratulate incumbent Paul D. Schultz II and welcome Janelle Rao to the Board of Education. They were both elected to 3-year terms on April the 6th. I also want to thank everyone for joining us in celebrating April as the month of the military child and purpling up on April the 15th. I also want to thank our local businesses who have displayed student artwork for the month of the military child. More than 70% of our students are military impacted, making us one of the most highly impacted districts in the country. The statewide assessments known as MAP tests are back, and they'll be held through mid-May. Everybody looks really excited back there. There was a stir in the audience after that. But students in grades K-5 who are in seated classroom will leave their Chromebooks at home for MAP testing beginning on April 19th. We want to make sure they're charged and ready to go for state assessments. Honors Night for seniors is scheduled for 7 p.m. Tuesday, May the 18th at the WHS Auditorium. It will be in person with COVID precautions in place. On behalf of all of our seniors, I want to thank so many of you, including the Chamber, for providing scholarships for our students. We're fortunate to have so much support from our community. Graduation is May 21st. Hopefully that weather's going to hold out for us. The last day of school for students in grades K through 11 will be Thursday, May 27th. May 27th is a half day of school. Believe it or not, even though there's snow in the forecast tomorrow, summer school will be here June the 3rd, June 3rd through 30th. And finally, online kindergarten registration will be open May 10th. Details are forthcoming. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. A motion to approve the consent agenda items A through D.
Motion.
Second.
Harn second. Ms. Rowell seconds that. All in favor, show of hands. 7, motion carries. Student recognitions. Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight it is my honor to recognize Kendra Gardner. Kendra is a 10th grade student at Waynesville High School, and Kendra was recently selected to participate in the Missouri Scholars Academy for the upcoming summer. Approximately 300 10th grade students from across the state are selected to participate each year via a competitive application process. Selection is based on GPA, essays, and letters of recommendation. The Missouri Scholars Academy is traditionally held on-site at the University of Missouri-Columbia, but this year will be held virtually. So we would like to recognize Kendra. Congratulations.
Congratulations again. We'll move the spotlight on education, Freedom Elementary.
Good evening. My name is Angela Dow. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Freedom Elementary. Tonight I have the privilege to honor Mrs. Virginia Fulmer-Rem and Mr. James Butzler for our spotlight on education. First, I have the honor of introducing Mrs. Virginia Fulmer-Rem. I think she's coming. Mrs. Rem is in her 22nd year of teaching. Freedom has been fortunate to have her 7 of those years. She began her teaching career at Waynesville Career Center. Mrs. Rem builds strong relationships with all stakeholders. She leads with the mindset of our kids and accepts every student as they are with kindness, respect, and understanding. She is always prepared to break down a lesson and create pieces of learning. When each piece is explained, modeled, practiced, and applied, the parts fit together to form a whole. Mrs. Rem collaborates with her peers and shares her philosophy of differentiation and employs it as a mindset needed to teach well. Patience is a gift of hers. Parents send us their most precious possessions, hoping we'll be humble, supportive, and empathetic. Mrs. Rem goes above and beyond to make sure those qualities transpire in her classroom. Mrs. Rem, thank you for all you do for our kids. I now have the honor of introducing Mr. James Butzler. This is Mr. Butzler's 9th year in the district and his 1st year at Freedom Elementary. James has been an excellent addition to the Freedom family. His positive attitude and willingness to go above and beyond has not gone unnoticed. He has great relationships with students, and you can tell they feel special when he calls them by name. James implemented the Golden Broom Challenge this year to recognize classrooms that go above and beyond with keeping their rooms clean and organized. Not only does he keep our buildings safe and provide a healthy learning environment, he is always quick to say a kind word. He is an excellent example to both students and colleagues. Mr. Butzler, Freedom is a better place because of you.
And our collaborative team spotlight is awarded to our 3rd grade team. And they're standing back here. Come on up, 3rd grade team. Mrs. Daly, Miss Campmeyer, Mrs. Osborne, Mrs. Sanford, and Mrs. Weaver. On the pre-test for comparing fractions, 13% of students were proficient and advanced. And on the post-test, 80% of students were proficient and advanced. 3rd grade subgroup proficiency for SPED students is currently at 77%, and 100% of our EL students are proficient on this standard as well. The strategy used to teach this standard was explicit direct instruction with the use of whiteboards. The third grade team works together to share best practices and ensure every student learns and they have fun while doing it. So thank you guys.
Give another round of applause, everybody at Freedom there. Transportation Employee of the Month, Mrs. Bells.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor again to recognize this month's Transportation Employee of the Month, Gene Sutton. He has been an employee of the district for the last 10 years. He currently is a regular route driver for our early childhood students at Williams, but lately he has been helping sub on regular routes, and Gene embodies what it means to be a team player, and we appreciate all of his efforts and positive attitudes. So thank you so much, Gene, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, stand right here. Thank you again. Congratulations.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. And 2020, 2021 Teacher of the Year, Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my honor to recognize our 2020-2021 Teacher of the Year. Ms. Joni Kampmeyer was chosen as our Teacher of the Year. Ms. Kampmeyer teaches third grade at Freedom Elementary School. In addition to her teaching duties, she participates in the Inspiring Administrator program and also serves as the after-school administrator at the Freedom Club Tiger location. Our district professional development committee designed and implemented the selection process. Ms. Kampmeyer will represent Waynesville in the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's Regional Teacher of the Year process over the summer, and the regional winner will represent our region in the Missouri Teacher of the Year program. Congratulations.
Okay. Community recognitions, Mrs. Bells.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor to recognize this month's community recognition to the Military Spouses Club. I believe Mary Tromley's here representing the Spouses Club tonight, and several board members. Excellent. Please come on up, ladies. Thank you. The Military Spouses Club donates money to support classroom teachers through grants, and they also provide additional scholarships to our students. And we appreciate their support. Without it, students would not get their needs met in several different ways. So we appreciate all they do and their partnership with the district. Thank you very much. Congratulations again. Thank you so much.
Moving to discussion items, Waynesville Middle School construction update, Dr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mr. President. This week, the final punch list is being done on the middle school with DHA is to be on site on Thursday to kind of do a final walkthrough and to see what items may be left on that final punch list. We're anticipating with the next 2 weeks of taking possession of the school to begin working on the floors and trying to get students in there about mid-May. We will come in May with final pictures and update of the progress. If you have any questions from here, I can answer those.
Any comments or questions? Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Cobb. Impact Aid update, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to go through and do our annual update on Impact Aid. And just as a quick reminder, This is a revenue stream that we receive as a federally impacted school district, and as Dr. Henry mentioned earlier, we are one of the most federally impacted school districts in the nation. So this is a very important revenue stream for us. Jump in here. So for 1920, the full amount that we received was about $18.8 million there. That was for last year, and that was for our basic support, our B2 heavily impacted, and the DOD impact aid that we receive as well. For 2021, this was the amount that I brought back in the January revision. So budgeted amount is $15.9 million. As a reminder, we always budget impact aid very conservatively because of the fact it is a bit of a volatile revenue source so we just budget it conservatively. Currently, year to date, we're at around 11.6 million received. By the time we get to the end of this year, I would anticipate it to be more around the $18 million mark as we had last year, but currently we have 15.9 budgeted in there. This is from a federal standpoint. This was at our last NAFIS conference that we had, and NAFIS is an organization that lobbies on behalf of impact aid. And so this kind of just shows you here the new 117th Congress that is in now. We're dealing with the FY22 appropriations. And for the first time since 2012, there are no budget caps this year due to sequestration and all these other things we had in effect. There were a lot of budget caps in place that are now out for the first time. And so we went up, and Dr. Henry and I joined with NAFIS and lobbied to have that raised. You can see that's for FY22, that's a fairly significant increase that we're asking for there. And if that comes through, that would come on with the FY22 payment cycle for next year. So a lot of legislative topics going on. I know, we've talked about this a lot. Right now is definitely a time to be reaching out to your legislators. Even from an impact aid standpoint, funding, infrastructure, and then there's a lot of things from a Missouri education reform standpoint right now. There's a lot of legislation out there that could potentially be a impact on impact aid. So just another reason for us to continue to reach out to our legislators and speak about the importance of these things, especially impact aid. Just speaking towards a B2 eligibility standpoint, this is what puts us in the heavily impacted phase here. And so a couple different scenarios here, and this is all just projections here. From year to year, this can change depending on a lot of different factors. But the current phase we're in, on the right side there, we're on an 8-year hold harmless. But we actually, with this application I just filed in January, we were eligible for the second time. So that gets us back in. So just as long as, they're still in the middle of reviewing our application as we speak right now. But I fully anticipate once they review that we will be back into B2 eligibility, and that will put us back in, that full eligibility status. So that's good news for the district there for sure. And I believe that's my last slide. Any questions?
Yeah, I might reiterate here what Mr. Harrison's mentioning. Just when this occurred, if you recall, a couple of years ago, the Department of Education decided that Prop C could no longer be counted as revenue, local revenue for the school district. That was devastating, and had it not been for the passage of Proposition 1 in 2017, we would have fallen out long ago. So that is vital to monitor closely where we're at in terms of our local tax rate. And we're still working very hard, and Mr. Harrison certainly works extremely hard in comparing us, finding comparison groups, keeping us at that 95% threshold to be able to remain qualified. But it continues to be something we have to monitor very closely because Proposition C took a real chunk when they took that away from us. And again, that's got nothing to do with us or Missouri. That was a Department of Ed analyst decision. We had been collecting impact aid on that particular piece of revenue for over 20 years. So it was a shame that happened, but certainly our elected officials went to bat for us. We were written into law, but something we have to monitor very, very closely. Also, and as Aaron alluded to here, infrastructure. is obviously a big topic right now. We're really working hard to try to see where schools, particularly military schools, fall into that and how we could receive some revenue. And certainly one of the things that we point out frequently is the fact that to repair buildings on post, it's very difficult to pass a local levy when many of your patrons in the community aren't able to access the post to make improvements to schools. So infrastructure needs on military installations are usually quite high. So that's something that we're really working on this year, because obviously through years and those buildings have been kept up very in very fine condition, but it's something that we have to continue to put money into and look at. So that's a big piece of what we're trying to accomplish this year as well. So just wanted to point that Prop C issue out. It's a big issue for us in our school district.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Salary recommendation, Dr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rarely does a superintendent get to come to the board after briefing them the month before and saying, hey, we're going to be able to give more money than what we initially said to you. So that's a nice position to be in this year. But I did want to point out that due to the additional round of stimulus funding, this is the third round really that's came to us, we're now going to be able to recommend a higher increase than we discussed in March, and feel quite to feel safe going into that. Of course, it's always important to remember that stimulus it's a one-time, even though it's been in 3 phases coming to us, it will not remain. It's not something that's going to stay with us. So we have to make sure we balance what we put into the schedule with how far we can carry that out over time as we move the schedule, because the cost obviously goes up. So we're feel very confident, though, in coming to the board for the first reading and adding 2% to our current base salary figure, also allowing movement on the salary schedule. Another thing, and this is something that we talked about, so for our new board members, even within the last couple years, this might predate you a little bit, but we had talked about in our comparison groups, there are certain columns where we don't compare quite as favorably to what I would call some of our competitors in terms of pay in our Masters Plus columns. So with the monies we were able to get this last round, we felt very confident in adding multipliers to some of those columns that we have, and that's going to help us become even more competitive in those columns as we head down the road. So you see those multipliers on your slide here. In addition, raising the hourly rate for SOS to $37.50 is something we would like to do. Keeping the cap at 50 hours. We did survey the staff, had a group, kind of a focus group to give us feedback on this, and really with the number of duties that our staff must perform, getting 50 hours is tough. So we talked about increasing that, and that might be something for the future, but at this point in time, the staff preferred to put more into the salary schedule than do much else with SOS, and that's what the survey also indicated. In addition, administration recommends for classified members an increase of 1.5% on the classified salary schedule. Also, there were 2 areas in the transportation department we wanted to address. You have the $12 per hour that you can see there for 1st through 6th year bus aides, and also increase activity bus driver to $12 an hour. Can you move me up, Jeremy? Thank you. Just one more slide, actually 2 more slides, just overall costs. You can see that goes beyond what we initially had projected, but just to let you know, we were more around that 1.4 range you see with the movement and the 2% to start out with. But we decided with that next round of stimulus, we still feel good about making this recommendation, even though it's first read for you now, so you can ask any questions you have. But it will be more costly for the certified movement. And then the classified slide, if you could get me there, Jeremy, thank you, would be about $342,000 total as far as additions in expenditure. So again, it's a unique time. It's a strange time. You're going to hear There's going to be a wide variance of increases taking place across our conference and across our region in comparison pools. I would also like to say that, some districts have increased their levy progressively to add additional funds in there. But we're already in the top 5 of all school districts in our comparison pool in every category. We're number 1 or number 3 in most. So this would only serve to help enhance that and also add some weight later in the columns past the masters. The board, if you recall, it's been about 3 years ago, really set the focus on trying to get our master's column up to number 1 because that's where most of our employees are at the certified salary schedule, and so we were able to do that. This will only serve to continue that. So we're feeling good about this, and certainly our teachers are deserving of a nice raise, especially given the immense amount of change we've had to have over the last several months. So be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. 2020-2021 Winter Sports Program, Mr. Ace.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Winter sports, just update on our winter sports and a synopsis of this winter season. We'll go over 3 things: academics, our Tiger performance training, and our competitive success for the winter season. Academics, we had a big uptick this year in the 2021 season with our teams and our programs. You can see that all programs are above a 3.0 in cumulative GPAs. That is, I think the first time maybe in 4 years we've been over that. Just fell short of our goal of 3.3 for the season, but we are making progress. That is essentially due to the structure that we have in place to allow kids to have time with our WIN program, and just coaches having fidelity in that process. So we are continuing to move forward in that area. We did have 28 all-conference student athletes. That is 28 student athletes that had a 3.75 or above. And in addition, we had 17 that were honorable mention. That is a 3.5 through 3.74. A lot of them actually at that 3.74 range, just shy of that all-conference. In addition, we did have 1 student athlete that was nominated by the Missouri Basketball Association, and she received academic all-state honors, Chambray Garcia. This is a synopsis of kind of each program, so you can look at that briefly, but those numbers are comparable. A total of 45 student athletes total that were academic all-conference. Tiger performance training, to date we have about 88% of our student athletes that have met the 70% participation requirement. A lot of that due to the fact that we were able to go in June and continue to move forward even though we had COVID. The implementation of sport-specific program and flexibility training has been implemented with the hiring of our new coach, Coach Bartz. So we've had some additions to that. And we are, continuing to develop that program for some more sport-specific and injury prevention type stuff. In addition to that, middle school and 6th grade participation has been consistent throughout 2021. We're averaging about 30 students per day of Tiger performance training. Summer plans as we move forward. We had this conversation the other day, but Monday through Thursday, starting June 7th, we will start our summer programming. We will have 2 morning sessions, so that will be a 6:30 session and an 8 o'clock session, and then we will have 1 afternoon session or PM session that will happen around 5 o'clock. In addition to that, we're going to add a middle school session only, so that will be all middle schoolers that will be allowed to come during that PM session. Sessions will be about 1 hour long. If, depending on numbers, we need to make adjustments, obviously we'll do so. And then we will continue to have our COVID-19 current restrictions in place. So we'll do contact tracing, all those things that are currently in place. Briefly, this is just a breakdown of injuries through the winter season per month. We can see that boys and girls wrestling were kind of the highest out of those. I will say that when we look at overall injuries, a lot of our injuries are less serious. In this next slide, you can kind of see that that we're seeing more injuries that are sprains, ankles, lower extremities, so not a lot of serious injuries. Concussions are down as well, so we had very few concussions this year compared to last year, which is obviously a positive thing. One point I would like to make is we did do an analysis of kind of TPT participation compared to injuries that we're seeing. And what we're seeing is roughly 65% of those serious injuries that are happening are those individuals that are not meeting that 70% TPT expectation at this time. Some of that due to not having summer participation, but we are seeing that kind of trending as of now. Competitive success, just would like to recognize our speech and debate. We had 3 state qualifiers. Mallory Goodwin, she qualified in 2 areas. And then we had Adam Freed and Aiden Elfison in public forum take second and qualified for the state meet. That program has come a long way in the last few years. They're doing a tremendous job with the programs. In addition, we had 23 all-conference winter student athletes, 20 all-district, 4 all-region or all-sectional student athletes, and then 1 all-state student athlete. When we look at teams in comparison to our conference, you can see the places there. Overall, I think we fell around 6th place. Boys and girls basketball, obviously a very competitive conference, but we were able to go quite far in the boys section. Winning a district title this year and making it to the Elite 8, winning that sectional game. In addition, I'd just like to recognize Coach Pills. He did receive 400 career wins this year. We did have a celebration for him at the game, but want to make sure we pointed that out. That's a tremendous feat to get 400 career wins in your coaching career. Our all-state basketball selection was Nadia Evans. She did receive all-state on the offensive side of the ball. And then we had 3 wrestlers, one male wrestler who won a sectional title as a freshman this year, so we have 3 more years of Will Austin. And then we had 2 other underclassmen, that Josie Moody and Marissa Gonzalez, that qualified for the state wrestling meet and were runners-up at the sectional tournament. In addition, we've had 4 additional signings to the ones that we already had in the fall. Michael Lewis will be going to Mid-American Nazarene University, Alden Pills to Christian Brothers University, Isabella Pondrum to St. Louis Community College, and Hunter Pohl will be going to Paul D. Camp Community College. And that is it, barring any questions. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Race. (2021-2022) Pandemic Guide, first reading, Mrs. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration is presenting the 2021-2022 Pandemic Opening Guide as a first reading. New information is in blue and deleted text is in red. Administration will bring this document back for approval during our May Board of Education meeting.
Any comments or questions? We'll move to action. District surplus, Dr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration is seeking approval of the surplus items as presented. If you have any questions.
Any comments or questions? Do I have a motion?
Make that
Ponder
motion.
makes the motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Deering, second. All in favor, show of hands. 7-0, motion carries. District assessment plan, Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. The district assessment plan is reviewed and updated yearly and brought for your approval. The assessment plan outlines assessments that will be utilized by the district, use and dissemination of results, as well as test security procedures. The only change to the plan was the addition of testing guidelines for virtual students And that is for virtual students in our Tiger Virtual Academy as well as in the MOCAP program through DESE, and those are on page 10. Administration requests motion to approve the district assessment plan as presented.
Any comments or questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Ms. Harn makes a motion. Do I have a second? Rowell, second. All in favor, show of hands. 7-0 motion carries. Refinancing 2016 Series Lease Certificate. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration is seeking approval for the refinancing of the district's 2000 Series Lease Certificate with LJ Hart.
Any comments or questions? Do I have a motion? Dr. Fuller makes a motion. Do I have a second? During second, all in favor, show of hands. 7-0 motion carries. And before we leave, I just want to, again, what Dr. Henry said, I want to thank Jan Dye for stepping in here for us. Like she never missed a beat. Come in running, and left last month running. I just not here today, but I appreciate that. I want to welcome Ms. Rao to the board. Look forward to serving with you guys. Thank you guys for the last year, and look forward to the upcoming year. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
President, I make that motion to adjourn.
Quinn makes a motion. I have a second.
I'll make it.
Connor, next second, all in favor? We are adjourned.